Like that. Okay. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, I want to talk to you about something that I think every single person in the room has felt at some point in their life, and that is imposter syndrome. But specifically, right, it's not just any imposter syndrome, it's the version that shows up when you walk into new spaces. So think like a new room, a new business, a new level, a new job, a new identity, like whatever that is, right? That's the imposter syndrome that I want to talk about today. Because it's one thing to feel like an imposter at something that like you've never done before. Yeah, okay. Like I don't know how to fly a plane. Like that's that. But that's normal. It's expected, right? But it's completely different when you've accomplished so much, right? You've worked hard, you've built something, and you've already proven yourself in this one arena. And then you walk into a new space and suddenly it feels like you don't belong, right? That is the version I want to talk about today, that you're just like, you question everything. Am I supposed to be here? Will they judge me? Can they see right through me? And so I just want to put it on the table, right? I want to start with a question. I want you to think about a time that you stepped into a new space. So a new room, a new job, a new role, a new industry, whatever it is, right? Think about that time and that voice in your head that said, like, you don't belong here. There are people that are doing it better, right? When was that for you? What did it sound like? Has that even ever happened to you? Is this a me struggle? Or is this a struggle that like we all deal with? Because I would like to know, like, when was that first time? What was the circumstance around that? Was that, I don't know, even taking like if you were in school, happened to me last month. Yeah, love that. It's normal. Maybe you're in school and you're taking a harder class, and a lot of people there are like geniuses, and you're like, well, what am I doing here, right? So if that's you, right, I'd love for you to like share what did it sound like, right? What did that voice in your head tell you? I really want to know what you're thinking, or what that voice was thinking. And as you're thinking about it, and even if you don't share, like feel free to unmute yourself, write in the comments. But I want you to notice like how many of us kind of have some of those same responses, right? Like the response in the comment that said happened to me last month, right? It's happened. Sometimes a lot of like us highly accomplished, highly capable people, we walk into new rooms and we suddenly forget everything that we've already done. So maybe that one thing that we're embarking upon, right? We might not be great at it at that moment, but we have all the experience over time that has led us to walk into that door. And when you forget everything that you've learned, right? That's imposter syndrome doing what it does best, which is erases like all your receipts, like all the things that said, oh, I did this and I did that and I did that, right? It takes it all away and it almost replaces all of it with fear. And so talking about imposter syndrome, because it's something that I've really struggled with, right? Um, I want us to go a level deeper. But before we do that, in the comments said, felt like that when I did my first internship. It was nerve-wracking to be in rooms where I felt like everyone else knew more than I did. It made me less likely to speak up. A lot. This happens to a lot of people. Like they dim their shine. And you think it might be because you're humble, but it is fear. And so I like that's, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So thank you for hitting that point because that's very important. I feel like my achievements were in comparable to the great work people I was networking with had. Yes. And so you're maybe comparing like, and again, you guys are like hitting all the points, because this is all the things that I'm going to talk about. But like you're comparing like your chapter 2 to someone's like chapter 15, and that looks completely different. And you have to own where you are right now and know that you will get there. But okay, I said let's go a level deeper. And the reason why I want us to delve a little deeper is because I think imposter syndrome is not random. It gets triggered by very, very specific things. And so I want you to think, right? What tends to set you off? Like, is it like when you're in certain rooms with certain kind of people? Is it like certain conversations that maybe make you feel less than? Is it a pattern, right? I would say sometimes, and for me, right? Sometimes being around people with a lot more money, a lot more capital, right? So thinking about people who've made like tens of millions and, maybe six figures, seven figures, eight figures, nine figures, right? To me, that's like, okay, I'm not there yet, right? And so being in that room sometimes is a little nerve-wracking. So And also I'll think so as you're thinking about, I'd love to know what it is, but another one is like sometimes being in a room where like you stand out like a sore thumb, right? Whether it's being the only woman, whether it's being the only African American, like whatever it is, right? Sometimes that those rooms may be a little bit more kind of triggering of your imposter syndrome. But that's a few things that I can share. If there are any other rooms um that are hard for you to be in, one of the comments said, like was in an internship with rooms of people who are way smarter, right? So that's when you're still learning, and you're in a room that you're, again, remember what I said, when you're comparing your beginning, your introduction, your chapter one with someone's almost ending, right? That looks so different. And so you have to, again, appreciate where you are, um, because it's a process. And then sometimes it's also like if you're putting yourself publicly out there for the first time. So if any of these spark, like if there's a time where you're like, oh, I really noticed that I stood out, or I really noticed that like I struggled to stand out because I was too afraid. Um, Appreciate where you are. Don't compare. Absolutely. I agree. Appreciate where you are. Like we'll get to where we're going. This life is it's a journey, right? It's not a destination. And so if you realize that, I think you show up stronger, even in rooms where you're not the most sure or you're not the smartest. And so that's what I just kind of, as you're thinking about the things, it's good to jot it down. It's good to write it down. Like if you're a journaler, as someone who journals, write it down, write down the things. Or you're like, oh, I stepped into that room and it didn't feel great, right? What do I need to do next time? Or even if you stand at the door and you're like, am I welcome in here, right? That is imposter syndrome talking about. So here is the real question, right? I don't think imposter syndrome ever fully goes away. I'm a lot better now, right? And maybe you are too. But in some new situations that you put yourself in, it like kind of creeps back up. So I don't think it fully goes away, but I do think that it changes shape. And so the question isn't like, how do I get rid of it, right? We can improve and get better and grow and become better versions of ourselves. But the better question I would say that you need to ask yourself, or really think about this, is how do I keep moving even when it starts showing up, right? I think that's the most important question because it's going to show up. It's going to happen, right? You're going to be in situations where people are better than you. And so you have to ask yourself, how do I keep moving when it shows up? And I would love to hear if people who have struggled with this but have surpassed it have succeeded, right? What is something that has helped you push through? Or even better, like what do you tell yourself when that voice gets loud? The voice that says, I'm not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here. Nobody's going to listen to you. Nobody's going to trust you, right? You're just this. You're just that, right? What do you tell yourself when you hear those voices? Or tell me something that has helped you push through. Is it, I don't know, accountability with a friend when you're struggling? Like, what is it? Are there routines that you've done? Are there any mindset shifts that you've taken? And you might not, want to say all of this out loud, but I do want you to be thinking about it. I want you to come to terms with this so that you can find ways to combat it. Like that's the most important thing. I remind myself of my humble beginnings. That's awesome, right? If you look back to where you were, right, you can appreciate the journey. You can be grateful. You can step into gratitude in everything that you're doing, step in with gratitude in everything that you're doing. And I think that's so important. And so, as people are thinking, as you're jotting down, as you're writing, this is what I've learned, right? The feeling of being an imposter and the reality of being an imposter is two completely different things. And I want to pause and just like say that again, right? The feeling of being an imposter is completely different from the reality of being an imposter. And, the feeling is like, okay, you're not ready. But the reality is that, like, you're here, right? You showed up. You went to that class, right? You went to that place that had all these people who were better than you. You are building, right? So even if you're not ready, even if, that the feeling is I'm not ready, right? The reality is that you're showing up, you're doing it, you're building, you are putting in the reps, my favorite word. And so I've had to learn to trust the reality over the feeling. And the reality is do it afraid. The reality is showing up. The reality is like I'm going to underwrite another deal so that when $100 million deal comes my way, like it won't be something that I've never seen before, right? Like that is what that looks like. And so that is the difference between the feeling and the reality. And I'll say this, right? Super honestly, every time that I've pushed through that discomfort, because again, discomfort is fear, the thing on the other side was so much growth, right? Every single time. There's not one time I can say that I have pushed past the fear. I have done it afraid, that I haven't looked back and said, thank you for doing that, right? Because what came out of it was like significant growth. And one more thing, right? The rooms that make you uncomfortable, those are usually the rooms that you're supposed to be in because you're going to learn so much. You're going to take leaps. You're going to grow. Because if we feel comfortable, like if you feel fully comfortable everywhere you go, you're probably not stretching. You're probably not building the reps. You're probably not growing. And we talk about this in the team a lot, right? Like how can you be uncomfortable every single day? Because that's when, like, it's in that season, that period, that muscle stretches. It's in doing the things, right? It's again, I say this a lot, but it's, doing that last rep where you're like, my muscles are so exhausted, and I do that one or that two more reps, right? That's when you start seeing that change. So that's what that looks like. And I really want to I want to harp on that a little, that that feeling, the feeling might not go away, right? But the reality is that you're doing the thing every day to help you grow, to help you get closer to your big dream, your big goal. And in the comments said, do it afraid. When I feel like that, I've learned to journal and notice that specific things set me off. From there, I can educate myself so I'm better next time. I love that. And the beauty about writing it down is that you can come back to it, right? You can come back to it and look at it from a place of growth, or you can come back to it and say, okay, I'm still struggling with this. What do I need to do to get better? What do I need to do to, again, become a better version of myself? So sometimes writing it down is really, really good for me. Also, talking to trusted friends can help me work through the anxiety. Absolutely, right? I always say, like, show me your five, the five people who you do life with, who you surround yourself with, and I'll kind of tell you the version of yourself that you're going to be, right? It's because iron sharpens iron. The people that you surround yourself with, those are the people that will reflect you. Like, how do they dream? How do they see life, right? Because you probably emulate that. And so you want people who, like, their goals are scary, their dreams are scary, where they're going, you're like, oh, if you can go there, so can I, right? That's what you want to be thinking. So I love that, like, right? The people around you are really, kind of sharpening you, a trusted friend, keeping you accountable. So as you can tell, right, I love this conversation because I think that sometimes we let the idea of imposter syndrome really stop us from achieving big, really cool, amazing things, right? And it presents itself in, like, masqueraded as fear, right? And so sometimes you don't get to do the thing, you don't get to be the person, right? Because you're so afraid. So that's kind of why I think this topic is so, so very important. And so here is what I want you to do this week, because I want to always make this very practical for us, right? Oh, there's a nice long comment. Okay, wait, before I tell you our challenge, I'm going to read. Knowing your strength and weaknesses really matters when you're dealing with imposter syndrome. Instead of letting your mind spiral with doubt, it helps you see the facts you're capable. You're not guessing anymore. You actually know where you're strong and what you're still growing in. And once you're clear on that, you stop trying to be perfect. You start owning what you're good at, and you don't feel the need to hide what you're not. That alone takes the pressure off. I love that. I love that. Like, you're not, you still want to grow, but you also know your strengths and you know your weaknesses, right? And that, I think when you know that and understand that, there's not a lot of guilt. And so that's where taking that pressure off. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. This is what I want you to do this week, right? I want you to step into one space that makes you uncomfortable, just one. It could look like a few different things. So I'll give you some ideas of just things that I'm thinking about, right? It could look like a conversation, maybe a conversation about growth or getting you to the next level or whatever that looks like, right? It could be putting yourself out there and going to some networking event or an event of sorts to meet people to increase your circle of influence. It could look like that, right? It could look like maybe sending a message to someone that you admire, just sharing that admiration, or maybe you want to learn from them. putting yourself out there, asking for something, and maybe coming up with a way to give back in return. It could be something like, posting on LinkedIn or on social media, sharing your story, or even being vulnerable about where you are and what you want to accomplish, right? You could do that. I think also it could look like, raising your hand when something doesn't feel, when you don't feel like you're 100% ready for it, but like pushing yourself and saying, so if like you're in a meeting and someone says, hey, we need someone to do this, right? It might be challenging, but you toss your hands up and say, that's me, right? Because you become the woman or the man who can do that thing, right? And that's growth. And so think about it, pick something, do it. And, I might never know about it. I'd love for you to share it in the community. We'll put a link to join the community. But if not, just know that you did it. I think that that's the most important thing. And I'll leave you with this, right? When that imposter voice shows up, because it will show up 100%. I want you to notice it. I want you to name it and then do that thing anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So it's going to show up today. I'm not telling you that we need to stomp it and kill it and let it go. I'm saying you need to know it. It's going to show up. So you need to own it, notice it, and then do that thing anyways and see what comes back from it. So, that's all I got. I loved all the conversations in the chat. They were really good, and it makes me realize that you're not the only person struggling with this. I'm not the only person struggling with this, right? We all have different versions of the thing that we're struggling with, but when we come together and we talk about it, right, we figure out the right ways, the right ideas, the right solutions to be able to get rid of something like imposter syndrome. So again, right, join the circle. Let's get join the community. Let's hold each other accountable, because I think that's the most important thing. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a wonderful Monday and a marvelous week. Bye, everyone.